Kang the Conqueror has experienced many changes throughout his publication history, even extending across other mediums and into the MCU. Like many of Marvel's greatest heroes and villains, Kang debuted during the legendary Stan Lee and Jack Kirby run of Fantastic Four in 1964. Several alternate versions of this nefarious time traveler from the future, from one of the Avengers' greatest foes to a founding member of the Young Avengers, have gummed up the works of the Marvel Universe. Number 19. Kang the Conqueror, father of the Apocalypse Twins. Uncanny Avengers was among Marvel's best comics in the 2010 second. The book's second volume, Apocalypse Twins, reintroduced the Apocalypse Twins. The children of Archangel and Pestilence, Uriel and Iman, were kidnapped by Kang. He trained them for a time and then dropped them into a concentration camp. He freed them as adults and set them on their violent course of killing a Celestial, destroying the Earth, and creating a planet for mutants to live on. Kang teamed with Havoc, Beast, and Wasp in order to go back in time to stop the Apocalypse Twins, but it was a ploy. Immortus gathered other members of the Avengers Unity Squad and Avengers from across time to stop Kang. Havoc was able to change the past, and the Kang of that future blinked out of existence. Number 18. Ahura Boltagan. Marvel's Inhumans lore spanned time and space. For a time, Ahura Boltagan, the son of Black Bolt and Medusa, was kidnapped by Kang the Conqueror. Kang took the boy under his wing and forged him into his own weapon, possibly for a strike against the Inhumans. However, Ahura had the last laugh and killed the Conqueror. Ahura took up Kang armors and ended up fighting his parents and several other Inhumans. Eventually, the group of Inhumans went back in time themselves, grabbing young Ahura from Attilan 13,000 years prior, when Kang left him with the Inhuman Randak so the boy could get his Terrigenesis. Number 17. The version of Kang that's free from Immortus. Kang the Conqueror's future self is Immortus, and he hates him more than anything else. Kang is a warrior, and Immortus is a negotiator. Kang fights all the time. Immortus makes deals. Kang has no masters, but Immortus will work for anyone who gives him power and lets him survive. During the first Avengers Forever, Kang worked with the time-lost Avengers against Immortus and the Timekeepers. The Timekeepers killed Immortus when he betrayed them and then tried to age Kang to Immortus age in order to kill him. However, he was saved by the Avengers and eventually, he and Immortus were made into two separate beings. While this felt like a great victory for him, that version of Kang eventually disappeared. Number 16. MCU's Kang the Conqueror. Ant-Man and the Wasp. Quantumania is introducing the first Kang fans have seen since Loki. The MCU Kangs differs from the comic Kang. While both versions have multiple Kangs in their multiverses, the Kangs of comics that readers have seen the most are from throughout the time stream. The MCU Kangs are from different universes, traveling between their multiverse. The Kang of Quantumania is the more physically dangerous of the two Kangs MCU fans have seen so far. Trailers show him beating Scott Lang like a drum, and one scene reveals that this Kang has killed many versions of the Avengers. Number 15. Nathaniel Richards. The first Kang immediately entered the pantheon of their greatest enemies, though he doesn't always loom as big a threat to them as someone like Thanos. The key to understanding Kang is his connection to his past. Nathaniel Richards is a 31st century scholar and a possible descendant of both Reed Richards and Dr. Doom, whose time travel technology he discovered in the future. He goes back in time first to ancient Egypt, where the Fantastic Four had already met him a year earlier. This knot in time was only the first that Kang would tie in the timeline. Number 14. Victor Timely. Kang possessed remarkable power and intellect, but his ambitions tended to be small relative to his opportunity. One example of this was his decision to go back in time to 1901 and hole up in Wisconsin. Kang creates a town called Timely and names himself Victor Timely, all for the purpose of establishing a base of operations so he could secretly alter the course of time. Kang does continue to interfere in events, and in a roundabout way, is responsible for the creation of the original android Human Torch. Kang used a Victor Timely robot duplicate that aged to keep the illusion alive when he wasn't physically acting as the character. The town of Timely also hid the entrance to his time city of Chronopolis. Number 13. Kang the Conquering Robot. Kang made his big screen debut in the MCU, but he's been a staple of several Marvel animated series already. One of his most intriguing versions debuted in Avengers, United They Stand, which otherwise wasn't a great take on the franchise at all. This version of Kang was much more futuristic and robotic and made for a more challenging threat. While many fans found little value in the series overall, it showed how elastic the concept of Kang was, which is key to his character. Most of Kang's many versions tend to share the same look. Number 12. Mr. Griffon. The all-new, all-different Avengers first encountered Mr. Griffon when his company, Kang Enterprises, purchased Stark Tower, and he appeared to ally himself with a Chitauri alien known as Warbringer. They soon learned that Mr. Griffon was actually an aspect of Kang the Conqueror, who had been split into his different selves by a time anomaly and trapped in the 21st century. Not content to wait thousands of years to return to the empire he would create in the future as Kang, he attempted to kickstart his dynasty in the present day as the CEO of his own company. Thankfully, the Avengers stopped Kang's plans, and he was thrown back into the time stream by Jane Foster. Thor. Number 11. Rama-Tut. The Fantastic Four actually met Kang in 1963 in the pages of Fantastic Four number 90. While the pharaoh Rama-Tut did not make it to the list of their greatest villains, he did tussle with one of the all-time greats, En-Sabah-Nur. The first mutant, also known as Apocalypse, contributed to the downfall of Rama-Tut, but what really did him in was the arrival of the FF, who had been thrown out of their own time. Rama-Tut hightailed back to the future but eventually returned to harass the Avengers a year later in their book. Number 10. The Scarlet Centurion. The Scarlet Centurion is the first of many alternate versions of Kang. The multiverse is a foundational idea in both Marvel and DC Comics, but Kang pioneered it. His every action in the past created another divergence from the main timeline. Kang based his armor on Dr. Doom, who was no stranger to time travel himself. This version of the character fought with the Avengers until they ultimately defeated him. He eventually invented a device that allowed him to time travel without creating new realities. His son Marcus briefly took on the role of Scarlet Centurion as well before Kang killed him. Number 9. Star Trek's Kang. One of Kang's wildest exploits in time and space produced one of the craziest crossovers of all time. This late 90-second story occurs courtesy of an alternate version of Kang once again meddling in several realities with something called a time hook. This leads the 90 Seconds X-Men and the crew of the Starship Enterprise D from Star Trek: The Next Generation to join forces to stop him. The extent of Kang's actions here revealed that the Marvel Universe is in some ways simply part of a larger one that contains other genre universes. Number 8. Kang the Conqueror. The Edge of Spider-Geddon series introduced a number of alternate reality versions of Spider-Man like Hobie Brown, Spider-Punk, a music-fueled crime fighter who worked alongside allies like Captain Anarchy, and an alternate version of the Hulk also known as Atom Bomb. Kang the Conqueror hailed from his reality's future of 2099, where he was a wealthy businessman who owned the rights to all the superheroes. He hoped to take Spider-Punk with him to the future to capitalize on his brand name, though Hobie Brown was able to defeat Kang with the power of punk rock. Number 7. Kamala Kang. One of the coolest things about the many divergent realities and dimensions of the Marvel Universe is that it often mashes characters up. That happened with Kang the Conqueror and Kamala Khan. Ms. Marvel. Kamala became entangled with Kang in the Infinity Wars storyline from 2018. She traveled forward in the future and got into a super complicated series of events. She eventually became untangled from Kang, but it was a cool moment for the character. Number 6. Immortus, the self-proclaimed Lord of Time. Immortus is one of Kang's many alternate identities, something Conqueror has in common with other multi-alias having Marvel villains, though he first encountered Immortus without realizing that he was a future version of himself. Immortus was loyal to the Timekeepers and was destined to rule in Limbo, which is a timeless dimension that exists outside the time stream. Immortus is the self-proclaimed Lord of Time, and part of his job from the Timekeepers was to monitor and control the various discrepancies in the timeline that were caused by his younger selves, like Kang and Rama-Tut. Number 5. Kang and the Universal Church of Immortus. Even with all the alternate Kangs out there are even more thanks to all the alternate realities that make up the greater Marvel multiverse. One of the more well-known Kangs belongs to Earth X, also known as Earth 9997, which later continued as Universe X. In this dystopian alternate reality, everyone had gained superpowers. Meanwhile, established heroes were left to deal with a new way of life that led to some dark transformations, but Kang persisted as always. He modified his Immortus identity to become the Pope of the Universal Church of Immortus and drew in followers like Spider-Man. Number 4. Kid Immortus. While young Nate Richards returned to the timeline to accept his destiny as Kang the Conqueror, he eventually reappeared in a new form known as Kid Immortus alongside Kang's love, Princess Ravonna. Kid Immortus had accepted his role as a villain and sought an alliance with Dr. Doom to defeat the Fantastic Four in order to beat his other selves who failed to stop them. Kid Immortus still planned to avoid his destiny as Kang the Conqueror, but his powers were siphoned along with Annihilus by Dr. Doom to create a new dangerous form that threatened the multiverse, Doom the Annihilating Conqueror. Two teams of Fantastic Four stopped the merged villain, and Kid Immortus returned to the time stream. Number 3. Iron Lad. All that fighting with the Avengers got exhausting after a while. A younger version of Kang, trying to avoid becoming the evil despot, went back in time. He ended up creating his own team of heroes called the Young Avengers, and he became Iron Lad. This good version of Kang proved to be one of the more interesting takes, and a fair amount of speculation on the MCU Kang centers on his possible role with this potential team. Eventually, this Kang also realized he was making a mess of the present and left for the future again after killing Kang and creating a time paradox. Number 2. The Council of Cross-Time Kangs. Another splinter of Kang emerged as one of the more terrifying variants. Kang the Conqueror emerged when a version of the time traveler ended up in the 40th century. He constructed a new suit of armor from futuristic materials and conquered the future Earth, becoming the traditional supervillain that most comic book fans are familiar with today. This would be enough for most folks, but Kang clearly adhered to the policy that idle hands are the devil's plaything. He continued to go back in time and get into battles with the Avengers, which created several alternate versions of Kang that soon gathered together as the Cross-Time Council of Kangs. Number 1. He Who Remains. The Marvel Cinematic Universe has continued to expand with hit series on Disney Plus like WandaVision and Loki. A new character was introduced on Loki played by Jonathan Majors known as He Who Remains. He was the leader of the Time Variance Authority and protector of the sacred timeline, though he is also a future variant of Kang the Conqueror. He Who Remains has the knowledge of multiple lifetimes and quickly made his presence in the MCU known when dealing with Loki and his variant Sylvie, teasing fans for his eventual appearance as Kang the Conqueror in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
This is